Hey, Tom.
How are you today? There you are.
I'm doing well, thank you. Good to see
What do
you.
you, what do you think of Deborah Neal, huh?
Oh, I'm trying to unpack what Deborah was talking about is fascinating. She's got some really wonderful things that she pointed out, and I'm telling you, that serious business definitely sounds like a true great program. And I'm fascinated by what she had. She had some really wonderful thoughts.
Well, Deborah and I have had a long-standing relationship. Our relationship is in the embryo stage. First time I actually met you in person was back in April when we were presenting data at the ISBN conference, and you were on stage and you did a share. And I said, I like this guy. I said, this guy, his heart's in the right place. I don't even remember. I think you were part of a bunch of segments, and so afterwards, I said, I got to meet this guy. So we met. We stayed in touch with each other. We had some conversations about the compensation study. So the beautiful thing is about this industry is you're able to see relationships like the one I've had with Deborah mature through the years and be strong and stronger and stronger, and at the same time meet new people. I guess we call that evolve, Patrick. We evolve with our relationships, right?
That's right. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this industry in particular. I mean, I've been so fortunate to be in this industry for 30 years and I have deep standing relationships. And yet I continue to meet wonderful and inspiring people like yourself or listening to Deborah. It's just fantastic. And that's what I love about this industry.
Let me read your bio, okay? And
Yeah,
it might it probably it's long and it could be even probably longer. So I'll do the abbreviated version. So you're National Director of Creative and Technical Education, and you wear a lot of hats, I will say that. At Floyd's 99 Barbershop, you have over 30 years of experience. You jumped into the creative end of the pool early when you entered NAHA as a student, and you were one of three finalists. Then you pursued education with a passion with 10 years at American Crew as an international educator, where you helped establish technical academies across North America, Europe, and Asia. That's cool. You taught men's haircut and grooming in over 10 countries, strong background in beauty and grooming product sales and distribution. Now you oversee the Floyd's 99 education team and are responsible for ongoing training for staff across the country. You also oversee creative content and vendor partnerships. And, and we're actually going to start with the last one, okay? And you, in April of 2024, you published your first book, The Bond We Share, which you co-authored with your sister, Melissa. Is it Melissa? It's Mel, is it
yeah,
pronounced? Okay.
yeah.
Who's a hairstylist. You're based in Austin, I'm sorry, Omaha, and you balance a busy travel schedule with trying to keep up with your four children, wife, and apparently your wife truly runs the show.
Oh, they all do. Let me tell you, between her and the kids, they run the show. But yes, that is the bio, and that's where I'm at. That is true.
So we're gonna start with the book. What a fascinating, talk about a light bulb moment. And Deborah's gonna totally dig this here. So tell us, I don't even want to launch into this. Just tell us about the book, how it came about and all of that.
Sure. Well, I'd say in the spirit of light bulb moments, I'm going to use this analogy. I think that this light bulb moment in particular for my sister and I writing this book started with a dimmer switch. To get to the light bulb moment to fully shine and brighten the room, we started with a low wattage on the dimmer switch and slowly it started to turn up. And it slowly started to turn up only because we realized that we had a story that we wanted to share with our family first and foremost and then our friends that surrounded us because none of them truly knew our backstory and history. And to give you a very quick version of this story and where we're coming from, my sister's adopted. She was adopted from Korea as an infant. And we have 2 years separation between us. I'm 2 years older, and we grew up together. And unfortunately, as we grew up, we reached the ages of 8 and 10. And when we did so, unfortunately, my parents were going through some really tough challenges in their marriage and in their life in general, and it led to a really traumatic event occurring where my sister was removed from our family. And the story really launches there in the book and centers on how that occurred and what happened. And I know we talked about Deborah was touching on self-help, and mental health now is such a prevalent topic everywhere, and as it should be. But back in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't so much so. And that's where my parents could have benefited from more help. Instead, it led to a traumatic event that separated us, and my sister and I were separated for 24 years. But then we were able to reunite. And after doing so, we started to unpack where we had been and what we had gone through in that separation period. And that's really the genesis of the book. And to get to that point, to understand even more beyond what we knew from our memories, we had to go and interview family members, neighbors, and close family friends. And it was stunning for us because we started to realize there was information that was sitting out there in the open that these people knew that we didn't as children or young adults. And after getting that information compiled, it was one of those common phrases where you go, gosh, what a crazy story. We should write a book. You always hear that analogy. Well, guess what? I decided to do so. And in 2020, when everything went chaotically upside down, I had plenty of time on my hands and I started to draft a manuscript. And I worked with my sister to compile it. And the story operates in chronological order so that the reader can understand what occurred in that separation period and then as we reunited. And I'll tell you, we're terribly proud of it because now the story's out and our family can understand it, our friends can understand it, and the readers who pick up the book can. And we're just very proud of the impact it's already had and the comments that have been directed our way, the feedback that has been given after as far as how it resonated with the reader. So we're terribly proud. And that's kind of the shorter version of it. Sorry that took a little bit longer, but it's harder to unpack because of the depth of it.
I think that myself and all the listeners we're hanging on every word, and uh, I think it's remarkably inspiring. Now, um, I have not read the book yet, but I can only imagine, or maybe I cannot imagine the degree of vulnerability that it took by you and your sister to do this.
That's right. That's right. My sister and I unfortunately went through some really tough challenges in that separation period. And as children living through that traumatic period, how that impacted us as children and the inability to have an outlet to deal with that and to carry that throughout our lives was very difficult. And to your point, committing to writing something, saying that is one thing, then doing it and then revisiting those memories and finding out more information along the way that you didn't know was very, very difficult. At times, it was extremely difficult for us to write and put pen to paper, so to speak. But in doing so, it was very cathartic at the same time, Tom, because we were able to see this in full scope and understand and really share this with others. Because I'm not joking when I say that no one knew the true story. And even for our own family, they were quite frankly shocked when they read and fully understand what had occurred.
Yeah, well, I need to I need to get the book and I need to read it. And shout out to you and your sister. And what a it has to be such a valuable work for someone maybe that's in the midst of something like this or have experienced something like this. I mean, so you've maybe given some hope for people to tell their story because you seem like a very healthy person here. And I'm sure that your mental health only improved. So strong mental health to begin with, it had to only improve just through this cathartic experience of finding out the truth and writing a book. So is there an element of closure around this for you then?
Absolutely. For my sister and I both, there's a great moment of closure, extreme vulnerability as we shared the story, as we awaited the feedback and responses from others, because that was truly frightening to know that we had put that information out, but gratifying in the end as we could close a circle and it's drawn us even closer together as siblings. And so it's wonderful. And so we are just very proud of what we've done and very grateful for the feedback. And to your point, we are truly, truly humbled by the responses, especially by those who've said, gosh, this has helped me I'm facing challenges in life, this has helped me see that I can push through and get to a better place.
All right. So the name of the book, it was published in April of 2024. It's called The Bond We Share, by Patrick Butler and Melissa. What's Melissa's last name?
Fleming.
Fleming. Okay. All right. So check it out, and which I'm going to do. All
Oh,
right.
well, thank you for that. That's on Amazon, easy to find.
All right. Let's move into next year role, and uh, and let's talk about Floyd's a little bit. So just give people some parameters. How many locations?
Sure.
Um, all of that.
So, so Floyd's Barbershop, we're 24 years old and we were founded in Denver, Colorado with a single location, of course. And now we've grown to over 136 locations in 14 states. And we're about to add three more states to the mix as we finish this year up. So we're continuing to grow. We're corporately owned, but also have some wonderful and amazing franchise partners as well. And they're wonderful owners. So we continue to grow in that capacity.
And your role is multifaceted. I needed to take a chair when you started to list all the different things you do. So describe what your responsibilities are in the ecosystem.
Sure. I joined Floyd's 10 years ago, and it was with the understanding that we were going to develop an education department and curriculum, and that was part of my background. And so we've done so, and we have a wonderful team of educators spread across the country that are, based in the fact that they're going to train new employees and continue to offer advanced education for our current barbers and stylists. And beyond that, Tom, it's grown because I've got a background in content delivery as well. And so we do a lot of video and photo shoots, especially for social media and website. But I do a lot with our vendor partners as well, all of our wonderful partners that we have on the shelves and who help us grow. In addition to that, I work hand in hand with our franchise partners as well, so that those ownership groups can have the support that they need. And so, yeah, it's wearing different hats at times, but man, we've got a wonderful family and we all chip in, and that's the best part of it.
Yeah, nice. I have been to some Floyd locations here in Chanhassen, Minnesota, and
Yeah.
there's this really cool vibe to it. And I always enjoy going in there. It feels different and it feels unique. It feels edgy. You get a sense of the craft, and a little bit of rock and roll, I mean, it's a really cool. So I love, I kind of float around but I always love going down to Floyd's. All right. In the last year, you said you've been taken now more than ever, by the basics, okay? And you also shared some things specifically on first client retention, including you included some data, in terms of some things you did and things you're doing now. So let's speak a little bit about that. Back to the basics, and specifically what you were talking about, like with new client retention, which is never gets old, to look for solutions for new client retention. So take it away.
Absolutely. I mean, the industry is continually challenged by trying to acquire a new client, but then retain them. And it's interesting, Tom, because in the last 3 to 4 years in particular, given the changes in the world, that changed even more. It became even more of a challenge for all of us to retain clients for various reasons. And so as we dug into that, we started to analyze, why was this occurring? Because the industry retention rate is actually in the mid 20% to 30% across the board, sometimes less. And if that's the case, that is very difficult, especially as you got resources devoted to marketing and pushing people into your doors. If you can't retain them, that's really tough. Well, as we dug into that, we started to analyze some of the results, and we found some interesting things occurring. So, as an example, if the industry retention rate is at 30%, for us it was, why was that occurring? 3 out of 10 clients were coming back. Where were the other seven going, and why? And as we dug into that, we hired an outside firm. They did a wonderful job of interviewing these clients and asking them basic questions, such as, "Hey, did something go wrong in the service? Did you not get what you wanted?" And it was interesting when the answer was, "No, it was fine." And then we turned to a question such as, "Well, was there a rude interaction? Were you treated poorly?" "No, it was fine." So when you ask those two questions, you're really scratching your head. But interestingly enough, a common thread started to occur when the answer turned to, well, why didn't you come back? And it was interesting because it started to fall in these lines, such as, I didn't feel a strong connection to the stylist or barber. I don't feel like they really got me. And this connection point continued to be this through line that we saw play out over and over again. And when we dug into that a little bit deeper, we found that that could be changed by in a couple different ways. And it's interesting because the connection that we're talking about here, that the client was talking about and referring to, could be handled by a stronger consultation to help them understand what the client truly wanted. And actually, it was influenced by a change with service as far as changing the service and adding on additional services or a retail product. So I'll give you a quick example. If a first time client purchased one retail product, our percentage points moved up from 30 to close to 50%. If they added on an additional service, let's say they came in for a haircut, but they added on a beard trim or a gray blending service or a wax service, any additional service impacted that retention level as well. That client felt more loyal and compelled to come back to that stylist or barber because of the impact they had and the belief that they had and the trust that they had in them to offer those additional services or products. So suddenly, as we dove into that, we found that through training, we could actually impact that percentage, that retention number, so that we could help people have a stronger consultation up front to truly connect and understand what the client wanted, and then feel more confident in recommending a product and or additional service. And I'll tell you, it was that adage, work smarter, not harder. And in this case, those simple changes can impact your retention levels quite a bit. And it's funny. Deborah mentioned something earlier in when she was speaking to you, and she was talking about the world needs us. And I'll tell you, they do, and it really falls in line with what I'm talking about here because that connection is missing. That service level is so desired right now across every field. And I'll tell you, it starts with a level of empathy and understanding. And a lot of that can take place in that initial conversation, the meet and greet and consultation and the carry through throughout the service. And I'll tell you, when you impact that connection point and truly connect with a client on a human level, your retention numbers will be affected and they will increase.
All right, I've got like three or four things I need to unpack with you. All right. So the connection piece, as it relates to empathy, understanding, we're fighting some trends in that one. And, as we become more technologically savvy and as we systematically remove things that create normal human interaction, and the trend is going to continue with AI. So we're looking at a workforce that's moving farther away from that interpersonal connection. So we have to fight that as a society and as a culture. And I'm not down on AI by any means, but there certainly is a very distinctive trend that the workforce that we're seeing today is less and less equipped for human connection. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. Absolutely. And we found that that skill gap, I'm going to call it a skill gap, just those interpersonal relationship building skills are really missing. And let's face it, as we work with a workforce that is coming out of school, as an example, those individuals haven't had an opportunity to gain a lot of life experience, especially in the workplace. And so we have been compelled and obligated to help them understand how to have those conversations and to develop those skills. I mean, quite honestly, when you think about it, the haircut, quite honestly, if I just said, hey, the baseline here is a haircut, that's the service I'm going to give you. Well, I can transfer those skills to anybody. I mean, I don't want to diminish the skill set of anybody here from a stylist or barber perspective, but what I'm saying is that is a physical skill that I can teach and transfer to someone else. However, a lot of people like to refer to soft skills, those conversational skills, those are more difficult for people to understand and comprehend and then implement. And you're really talking about changing human behavior here. And that is
Mhm.
that is really challenging. We found that to be true, Tom. So you are exactly right when you say that.
It reminds me something that we have in our core curriculums is an acronym that is it's ACE, but there's two A's. It's AACE. And this has been our way to really teach to the workforce a way to make a connection with the head and the heart. And the acronym really gives a basis and a little bit of structure for someone in that skill gap. And they stand for appreciate. Um, uh, it's ACCS, excuse me. Why am I forgetting my own acronym? Appreciate, care, challenge, and encourage. And we have found that given a structure to building a connection using that acronym really helps open up some doors. All right. Go ahead, say something. I was going to throw my other question to you.
No, go for it. Go for it. Go. I love that, by the way. I absolutely love what you just said.
The other thing is, recently I often get people coming to me, do you have data on this? Do you have data on this? Do you have data on that? And it's super interesting for you to say that you see a cause and effect between a product being part of the service and then an add-on service to have a direct correlation with new client retention. And you actually did a study on this?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, it caught me off guard, I'll be honest with you at first. But then when you start to dig into the data a little bit further, you realize there is a direct connection here. But it's interesting, Tom, because it doesn't happen unless that connection occurs up front.
Yeah.
That trust, that buy-in by the client has to occur. It's not an afterthought. You can't just tag on the product at the end. You just can't tag on the service and get lucky there. There has to be some thoughtful conversation that occurs and a trust level that is built, and it starts immediately. And I tell people all the time, they're like, well, oh, you're saying the consultation is the key. If I can do that within a couple minutes, they're going to trust me. Well, no, actually, the consultation in our world occurs throughout the entire service. It's just what we call a continued consultation.
Mm.
I make my choices about what I'm going to do technically based on our initial conversation. And then as you continue to sit there and I work with you, I'm unpacking more and that consultation evolves. And in doing so, what we found, and this is interesting, we found the clients have given us feedback. They buy in and gain trust through those conversations. Even a simple recap at the end of the service has built in trust to that client. It's fascinating.
Ah,
When we talk about the recap, and this sounds so basic, I go back to that initial conversation with my client. I say, hey, remember when we started and you said these were the issues that you had? Take a look at what I did to address them. Here's how I fixed that for you. This is what we did, and this is how I had to achieve it. That simple recap actually built more trust, and our clients gave us that feedback. I felt more confident in my stylist or barber when they showed me and walked through what they had done. So simple and yet so impactful.
this is good stuff, Patrick. This is good stuff. You and I had a prep call, but we didn't get as deep into this. I love the continued consultation. That's really smart. The recap at the end, there's another cause and effect. Um, and what you said, coming back to the data, you said that new client retention went up, was it 30% with,
30%. You're at 30 and you can move up to 50 just based on those actions.
gotcha. So you could move up 20 different points,
Hmm.
which if you divide, 20 by 30, it's like a 66% increase through some very tangible things. All right, I got one last question, then we're gonna have to wrap up because I always promise we won't go more than an hour, but I feel like I could talk to you all day. I mean, why don't you, Deborah, and I should just have dinner sometime. We'll keep the conversation going. So, um, my next thing is, all right, so here I am in Chanhassen, Minnesota, and 3 miles as the crow flies is Sport Clip. I'm sorry, I almost said Sport Clip. I did say Sport Clips. That's your competition. There's a Sport Clips down there too. But when I go to Floyd's, how do you roll this out? How do you roll this thing out so that when I'm at Chanhassen next time, getting a haircut from whoever I get, how do you roll it out at that scale?
Yeah, absolutely. Scaling that type of training is really challenging, and yet there's some simple ways that we can do that. And that's where we've really leaned into the team that we've developed that can operate in different markets and deliver that type of curriculum. And Tom, we always start at the foundation. I mean, that service experience has to be the centerpiece for everything that occurs. And it's interesting when I talk to new employees because, like, well, you're going to focus on haircutting techniques. I'm like, yeah, we're going to get to that. But if you can't focus on the service experience first and foremost, you can do all the haircutting you want and it will not make a difference. And I hate to say it that way. That sounds negative, but the truth is the data doesn't lie. A good haircut doesn't solve everything for you. Instead, that connection piece is what seals the deal and increases the loyalty factor for that client with you. So I'll tell you to answer your question, the scalability is challenging, and yet when you simplify it, you can achieve this.
Yeah. All right, everybody, let's give this guy a virtual round of applause. You're also, hold on here. I'm going to have to step away from my desk just for a moment, just a second here, because, I found it. I knew I had it somewhere. It fell off my desk. All right, this is what you and Deborah are getting. You're going to get $1 million light bulb. That's going to be coming to you very soon. And that officially inducts you into the Lightbulb Moments Brain Trust. Deborah has already been part of the Brain Trust. She's like a double recipient, and we're going to have you back. I want to get an update on this. This is really good stuff. And Patrick, thank you for spending your precious time with us today. And I love building a relationship with people like you because you're one of the good guys out there. So bravo.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, I admire what you and the team from Qnity are doing so much. I have the ability to see it from a couple different vantage points. And I'll tell you, I absolutely love what you're doing. It's fascinating and it's really, really valuable to what we're all doing. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. All right, everybody. So we have just wrapped up 2 episodes of Lightbulb Moments back to back. I do want to thank our sponsors for helping to make this possible. What a couple of great guests today. And what we'll do is we will publish them separately. They're 2 independent sessions that we did together. So I'm going to wish all of you a very happy Independence Day. And all the best. We are in the second half of the year right now. We're in at Qnity, we call season 5. This is a tremendous time to really take a fresh look at the second half of the year. And we hope all of you end the year strong. And once again, thanks to our guest and thanks to all of you for dialing in today. All the best. Thanks again.